All right, this is a recording for section 2.5. Let me share my screen. In 2.5, we're going over, this is part of the lecture handout for two quantitative variables. And this is when we're talking about correlation. And again, remember, anything near zero would mean that there's no association or relationship between two quantitative variables. But then we've also got a high positive. We also got a strong negative correlation. And the purpose of this video is to look at one of the examples for StatKey. We're looking at Hollywood movies, the audience score, which is quantitative, versus the budget that was spent on making these movies. So the idea is that if you spend more money, will you also get will that correlate with a higher audience score? So what we're going to do for this is we're going to go to StatKey. And again, this is just to illustrate what you'll do for your homework example. Go to StatKey, and this is what we're using, the two quantitative variables, which is the last of this descriptive statistics and graphs. And when you go in here, you're going to want to click on the drop down so that you can find the data set that you need. And again, the names will here, they're not in alphabetical order, but I'm looking for the Hollywood movies, third edition. Again, we're always third edition. If there is a second and third, our books is third edition. Audience scores versus the budget. And again, I'm just going to double check before I click on that. Audience scores, Hollywood movies 3E, audience scores versus budget. Just make sure I'm going to the right one. Audience scores versus budget, and it will give you the scatter plot. This is a bunch of movies, 1,056 movies, and if you hover over them, it'll show you like how much was spent on the movie. Down here at the bottom, think of this as your x-axis. So more, this is like 50, 100, 150, and this is probably like in my guess would maybe like be in millions. And then over here, you got the audience score, and it's hard to tell whether there's a trend. Like, is this as you spend more money, is there a definite like getting higher and higher growth with the audience score? You can also click on the show regression line, and this is what we'll talk about in 2.6, but you can see that there does seem to be a little bit of an increase as you go from left to right, where maybe if you do spend more money, you end up getting a higher audience score. But the real thing is to look at the correlation, which is the formula that StatKey, it's a very tedious formula, but StatKey has done it for us. And it's giving us a 0.13, which if you go back to the handout and you look at sort of the measuring stick, 0.13 or 0.13 would be right about here, 0.1. And so it would fall into like this area where there really isn't anything to be excited about. It's kind of falling more into like there's really not that impressive of association. If really there's maybe not an association, as opposed to if it was over here on the 0.2, 0.5, or 0.9. So this one you would say there's not really an association, or maybe someone might try to argue and say there's a very, very weak association between these, which would be that as the budget gets higher, the audience rating or score gets higher as well. The other thing that you might be asked for your homework question is to think about particular ordered pairs. So they do say find the movie that had the lowest rating. So again, these are highly rated movies up here in the 80s, 60s, 40s, 20. And so way down here is a movie that only rated about 10 by the audience, and it cost them about 22. And that would be, again, I'm thinking that's in millions to make the movie. So this is your lowest rated movie out of all this over 1,000 movies. And so that's what this is here. Rating of 10, budget of 22 million. And again, you don't need to calculate the correlation yourself. It says use technology to get the correlation. And that's that 0.132 that StatKey already did the crunching all the numbers for us. And so that's what you would need for your homework. for your own StatKey example that you do, you can also come here and like maybe just play around with some other examples and see if you can just for yourself gauge whether you think something has a positive correlation and how strong it is. This one seems to be much more of an incline. So you can see the correlation here is 0.7, which is much stronger and positive. You can also just maybe pick on some other ones. Let's see if I can find a negative one here. Nothing over here, but just play with things. Those are both positive correlation. Oh, here's one where maybe we finally see like a downward trend. This line is something you can turn on and off, but this one is not very strong, but it does seem that as the number of free throw percentage for basketball players goes down, the field goal percentage goes down. But based on the line, there's some sort of downward negative trend. Then the correlation over here is negative 0.35, which that would be maybe at least a week negative correlation. But anyhow, that's it. I'm going to stop the recording there. Hope this helps you when you do your example on the homework. Take care.